filled the grand banquet hall, their petals cascading over lavish gold-trimmed tables. Laughter rang through the air, elegant guests in shimmering gowns and pressed tuxedos toasting to the most beautiful bride, my sister, Cassandra. I balanced a heavy tray of champagne flutes in my shaking hands, sweat trickling down my spine. The shimmering crystal glasses clinked as I weaved through the sea of guests, careful not to spill a single drop. My mother's sharp voice cut through the festive air. "Faster, Lily. You're embarrassing me." I bit my lip and nodded, fighting the sting behind my eyes. It wasn't enough that Cassandra was having the wedding of the century, with every luxury money could buy. It wasn't enough that my parents had spent their entire fortune making sure she married into an even wealthier family. No, what truly drove the knife in deeper was that they had forced me to work at my own sister's wedding, like some unpaid servant. The humiliation burned in my chest. "You will never be successful like your sister," Cassandra had sneered earlier that day, her expensive lace veil trailing behind her as she glanced at me in my simple, worn-out dress. "You were born to serve, Lily, not to be celebrated." Her words replayed in my mind, twisting like a cruel echo. And as I stood there, dodging guests who barely spared me a glance, I clenched my fists. But what none of them knew, what none of them even suspected, was that my life was about to change forever. The grand entrance doors swung open, and a sudden hush fell over the room. All eyes turned toward the tall, striking man standing at the threshold. A hushed murmur rippled through the crowd. "Who is that?" someone whispered. Dressed in a tailored black suit that looked like it cost more than the entire wedding venue, his presence was undeniable. He exuded power, an aura of quiet command that made even the wealthiest guests in the room shift uncomfortably. My heart lurched in my chest. It was him, my husband, the man I had married in secret, the man my family had no idea about. Cassandra, oblivious to my connection with the mysterious guest, smirked as she approached me. "Lily, make sure you serve that man well. He looks important. Maybe if you're lucky, he'll tip you enough to buy a real dress." She tossed her hair and laughed, turning back toward her new husband. I inhaled sharply, my hands trembling as I set the tray down. The weight of my family's mockery, their endless taunts, had burdened me for years. But now, standing here, I felt something stir within me. A shift. A reckoning. I lifted my chin as my husband's piercing gaze met mine across the room. A slow, knowing smile spread across his lips as he began walking toward me. And the moment he opened his mouth to speak, the entire wedding came to a standstill. "Excuse me," his deep, rich voice rang through the hall, commanding absolute attention. "Why is my wife serving drinks at this event?" Gasps erupted from every corner of the room. The tray in my hands nearly slipped. My mother's face drained of color. Cassandra's smirk shattered into an expression of pure disbelief. "Dubua," my father sputtered. My husband's eyes never left mine as he stepped forward. He reached for my hand, his grip warm and reassuring. "Lily, you don't belong here," he murmured softly. "Not as a servant." I swallowed the lump in my throat, my body shaking. My family had treated me like I was worthless, like I would never amount to anything. But they had no idea who I had become. And they certainly had no idea who I had married. My mother broke the silence first, her voice shrill with panic. "This is a mistake. Lily can't be married. She's useless. She doesn't have anything to offer a man like you." My husband's gaze darkened, his fingers tightening around mine. "Useless?" he repeated, his voice a quiet storm. "Funny. The woman you call useless just so happens to be the person I trust most in this world." Cassandra's lips curled in disgust. "You're lying," she snapped. "There's no way someone like her is married to a man like you." My husband let out a low chuckle, his amusement cold and calculated. "Would you like proof?" He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. Within moments, a large image flashed onto the giant event projector. Our wedding photo. Me, in a stunning silk gown. Him holding me close. A moment captured in time, undeniable and real. Gasps rippled through the guests. Cassandra staggered back, her hand clapping over her mouth. And in that moment, I realized something. For years, I had been made to feel small, worthless, but not anymore. Now, it was their turn to feel powerless. As the shock settled in, my husband turned to me, his eyes filled with something warm. "Lily," he said gently, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Are you ready to leave?" I hesitated. Then, my gaze shifted toward the wedding servers, young girls who were being treated exactly as I had been. I took a deep breath. "No," I said. "Not yet." My husband arched a brow, intrigued. I turned toward the servers and stepped forward, my voice steady and clear. "To everyone working tonight," I announced, "this is the last event you will ever serve at under these conditions. If you want a new job, one that pays well and treats you with respect, come see me." A few servers gasped, exchanging stunned looks. My mother's face contorted in fury. "What are you doing?" she hissed. I looked at her, my voice unwavering. "I'm showing kindness, the very thing you never showed me." My father tried to protest, but my husband placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Don't. You've already lost her." And with that, we turned and walked out together. The night air was crisp against my skin as I stepped outside, my heart light for the first time in years. I had spent my entire life believing I wasn't enough. But tonight, as I left that place behind, I realized the truth. I had always been more than enough. And now, the world would finally see it too. As we stepped into the limousine waiting outside, my hands trembled slightly. The wedding hall was still buzzing with gasps and frantic whispers behind us, but I didn't look back. I turned to my husband, Daniel. His fingers brushed against mine, a silent reassurance that I was no longer alone. He studied me for a moment before speaking. "You didn't have to do that," he murmured, helping the servers. "You could have walked out and left them behind, just like they left you." I swallowed, staring out the window as the city lights blurred past. "I know," I admitted, "but I couldn't. I know what it's like to be powerless, to be treated like nothing." I exhaled slowly. "If I can make a difference for them, then I will." Daniel's gaze softened, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Then he reached for my hand and squeezed it. "You're stronger than you realize, Lily." For the first time in years, I believed him. The next morning, as I sipped my coffee in our penthouse, the inevitable happened. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Mother. Then Cassandra. Then father. One after another, their names flashed across the screen, their desperation leaking through their frantic messages. "Lily, this is ridiculous. You embarrassed us last night. Call me. You think you're better than us now? You will never be family again after this. Lily, we need to talk. Your actions have put us in a difficult position." I set the phone down, unimpressed. They finally realized they lost control over me. I mused aloud. Daniel smirked from across the table. "Did you expect anything less?" "No," I admitted. "But I did expect them to at least pretend to be apologetic." Daniel's expression darkened slightly. They never thought they'd need to. To them, you were never meant to be the one with power. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was exhausted. And then the next message came, from an unknown number. "You think your rich husband makes you untouchable? Watch what happens next." A chill ran down my spine. Cassandra. And she wasn't done playing games. The next few days passed in a blur of luxury and peace, until it all came crashing down. Daniel had been away at a business meeting when I decided to visit a charity event downtown. I had begun working on a foundation to help young women gain financial independence, something I wished I had growing up. But as I stepped out of the venue, the world around me tilted. A black SUV screeched to a halt in front of me, and before I could react, two men in dark suits grabbed me. A cloth pressed against my mouth, chemicals filling my lungs. And then, darkness. I awoke in a dimly lit warehouse, the scent of oil and dust heavy in the air. My hands were tied behind my back, my ankles bound. And standing in front of me, arms crossed, was Cassandra. "You just had to humiliate me, didn't you?" she spat, her perfect features twisted in rage. I swallowed hard, my head still spinning. This is insane, Cassandra, I rasped. You had the perfect wedding. What more do you want? Her eyes blazed. You ruined everything, she seethed. Do you know what people are saying? How you overshadowed me on my own wedding day. I stared at her in disbelief. You kidnapped me because of your ego? She leaned in, her breath hot against my face. I kidnapped you, she whispered, because I refused to let you win. And with that, she stepped back and turned to the men standing in the shadows. Make sure she suffers. A cruel smile curled on her lips. But don't kill her yet. I had always known Cassandra was cruel. But this was beyond anything I had ever imagined. Panic clawed at my chest, but I forced myself to remain calm. Daniel would come for me. I knew he would. But I couldn't just wait. I needed to get out. My fingers worked frantically at the knots binding my wrists, my mind racing. I had survived years of being treated like nothing. I had endured humiliation, pain, betrayal. And I had fought my way out. I would not let Cassandra win this time. Taking a deep breath, I whispered to myself, "You are stronger than this." Then, with one final yank, the ropes fell loose. And the fight was just beginning. By the time Cassandra returned, I was ready. She entered the warehouse, expecting to see me still bound. Instead, she found me standing.
Free.
Her eyes widened in shock. How? I didn't give her time to react. With one swift motion, I grabbed the chair I had been tied to and swung it hard. The impact sent Cassandra sprawling to the ground. The men she had hired rushed toward me, but before they could reach me, a deafening sound echoed through the warehouse. Gunshots. Get away from my wife. Daniel. My heart nearly stopped as he stepped into the room, his bodyguards flooding in behind him. Chaos erupted. And in the end, Cassandra lost everything. The police arrived soon after, and Cassandra's smug arrogance crumbled as she was handcuffed. You can't do this to me, she shrieked, her voice hysterical. But no one listened. For the first time in her life, she was powerless. As she was dragged away, she turned to me one last time, her eyes burning with hatred. You think this is over? She hissed. I met her gaze, unflinching. It already is. And with that, she was gone. The flashing cameras were relentless. Headlines splashed across every major news outlet. Bride's sister kidnapped at her wedding, by her own family. Socialite Cassandra Royce arrested. Wedding scandal shakes high society. The world was watching. I sat in the back of Daniel's luxury car, my hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea as the vehicle cut through the city streets. The chaos of the past week lingered in my mind, and I exhaled slowly, trying to process everything. Cassandra was in jail. My parents had gone into hiding, their perfect image shattered beyond repair.
And me?
I had survived. Daniel's hand covered mine. You're safe now, he murmured, watching me with concern. I turned to him, my throat tight with emotion. I never expected her to go that far, I admitted. I thought she hated me, but kidnapping? Trying to hurt me? Daniel's jaw clenched. People like her don't know how to lose, Lily. When you stood up for yourself, she saw it as an attack. And when she realized she couldn't control you anymore, she tried to destroy me. I finished, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel nodded. But she failed. I looked out the window as we pulled into the underground parking lot of our penthouse. She failed, I echoed. But deep inside, I still felt the remnants of fear. Because I knew people like Cassandra. And I knew she wasn't done yet. The next morning, as I scrolled through the news on my phone, a familiar name popped up. Eleanor and Richard Royce speak out. We had no idea what our daughter was planning. I scoffed. So this was their game now? Playing the innocent, devastated parents who had been completely unaware of Cassandra's crimes? Daniel, sitting across from me at the breakfast table, raised an eyebrow. They're trying to save themselves. Of course they are, I muttered, setting my phone down. They don't care about me. They only care about their reputation. I had expected them to at least try and reach out to me privately. But no, my parents had chosen the media as their audience. Because to them, this was just another scandal to fix. They'll probably say they stand by Cassandra next, I said bitterly. Daniel sipped his coffee. And if they do? I met his gaze. Then they can rot with her. For the first time in my life, I meant it. Later that day, a knock echoed through the penthouse. I wasn't expecting visitors. Daniel opened the door, and to my utter disbelief, my mother stood there. She looked different. The usual sharp elegance of her features was replaced by exhaustion. Her once pristine hair was slightly disheveled, and there were deep lines around her eyes. "Lily," she said quietly. I crossed my arms. "Why are you here?" She hesitated. Then, because I was wrong, I let out a humorless laugh. "Now that's something I never thought I'd hear from you." She flinched. Daniel watched from the side, his expression unreadable. "You have every reason to hate me," she admitted. "I never believed in you. I treated you like a servant. I favored Cassandra over you, and She stopped, swallowing hard. I stared at her, waiting. "I let her do what she did to you," she whispered. A bitter taste filled my mouth. "You let her?" I repeated. My mother lifted her eyes, and for the first time, I saw something real in them. Guilt. "She told me she wanted revenge," she said. "I thought she meant something petty, that she would humiliate you in public. I never thought she'd take it so far." "You're lying." She shook her head, and to my shock, her hands trembled. "I swear to you, Lily, I didn't know she was going to kidnap you. I would never." She trailed off, her voice breaking. I sucked in a breath. For years, I had dreamed of hearing these words. I had wanted my mother to admit she was wrong. But now that she had, it didn't change the past. "You only came because your name is being dragged through the mud," I said coldly. My mother's eyes darkened. "I came because I lost both my daughters. Cassandra is gone, and you." "I'm free," I interrupted. She stared at me for a long moment before nodding. "Yes," she murmured. "You are." Then, with a small, hesitant glance at Daniel, she turned and walked away. I should have felt satisfied. But instead, an ache settled deep in my chest. Daniel pulled me into his arms the moment the door closed. "You don't have to forgive her," he murmured. I exhaled shakily, pressing my forehead against his chest. "I don't know if I can," I admitted. "But maybe that's okay." He kissed the top of my head. "It is okay, Lily." And for the first time, I believed it. I thought it was over. But Cassandra had one last move to play. A letter arrived at our doorstep. No return address. I hesitated before opening it. The moment I saw the handwriting, my stomach twisted. It was from her. "You think you've won. But I always have a way out, dear sister. I'll be seeing you soon. Enjoy your little victory while it lasts." My hands trembled as I crushed the letter. Daniel read over my shoulder, his expression turning to steel. "She's still dangerous," he murmured. I met his gaze. "Then we'll be ready." Because I wasn't the same Lily anymore. And Cassandra? She no longer had control over me. Months passed. Cassandra remained in prison, but I never let my guard down. My foundation flourished, growing into something bigger than I had ever imagined. Women who had been overlooked, mistreated, and belittled were given a fresh start, just like I had always dreamed. Daniel stood by my side every step of the way, and with every challenge, I grew stronger. One day, as we walked through the bustling Foundation headquarters, he squeezed my hand. "You did this," he said softly. "Not because of revenge, not because of them, but because you wanted to help others." I smiled, warmth filling my heart. "Maybe that's the best kind of victory," I murmured. Daniel kissed me, slow and deep. And, for the first time in my life, I knew I had finally won. The past would always be there, but it no longer defined me. Cassandra would one day get out of prison, but I wasn't afraid anymore, because I had built something greater. A legacy. A new life. And as I stood at the top of the city,